Hello and welcome to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's DIF, the online event series that aims to inspire action towards a circular economy. Today's session is all about how we can bring different parts of society together to collectively work on some of the challenges that we are facing. Don't forget, you can post questions by using the comments thread beside your video and using Twitter using the hashtag ThinkDiff. My name's Harrison Wavell, and I'm part of the learning team at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And I'm delighted to welcome our guests today, Rita, Judith, and Camilla. And first of all, before we dive into the topic, it would be great if you could briefly say a few words about yourselves.
Thank you, Harry, for welcoming us to the ThinkDiff Festival. We're very happy to join again as a Stars Are Circular Foundation. So I'm Rita. I'm one of the founders and chair of the Stars Are Circular Foundation. And what we try to do with the foundation is actually bring the principles of circularity to children. And we do that, for instance, by working together with schools, but also seeing if we can develop things outside of schools. So that especially will be a topic moving forward in this dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So I'm Camila. I'm originally from Brazil. And I actually joined the foundation together with Rita some months ago as a volunteer to also promote my own impact in the society. And that's why I'm here to collaborate with the DIF today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And do we have Judith? Is she present as well?
Judith? So Judith is a friend of mine. She's also a founder of one foundation that we work with, but she can explain herself.
Hi, I'm Judith. I founded Spark to Learn, a foundation that aims to change education, and also themes like tech, circular economy. Those are part of these new types of education.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to have all of you with us this evening. So let's begin with the title, a curious title. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a child to raise a village. I was quite interested when I first heard it. Could you tell us a little bit about what that means and why you've chosen it?
Yeah, I think perhaps more people are familiar with the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It's actually an African proverb, which basically says as a community, you have to come together to really involve the kid and be involved in the upbringing of the kid. And I think, you know, this is before everything was standardized and you have the home and you have schools. Within the village, you had not just the parents, you had uncles, you had aunts, you had grandparents, you had neighbors, and everybody took part in the development of the child. So I think that still is valid now, perhaps even more. Especially tackling bigger systemic topics like climate change, that we really need to come together as a village. On the other hand, the mirror proverb is it takes a child to raise a village. And we were actually inspired, and we will shortly show a video about it, especially by Greta Thunberg and the Fridays for Future movement, where children were going to the streets and protesting and talking about that they needed more attention for climate change and attacking climate change because it's about their future. So basically it was children that said, dear village, you need to rise to the occasion and work with us and work for us to have this more sustainable future. So that is where the topic came from. And so perhaps this is a good moment, Harry, to show the video.
Yes, I think that would be great.
Okay.
My name is Greta Thunberg. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. That basically means I only speak when I think it's necessary. People don't know that we are in this emergent situation. We all say we know and we all think we all know, but we don't. I have met politicians and journalists that doesn't have a clue. Deforestation of our great forests, toxic air pollution, loss of insects and wildlife. The acidification of our oceans. The main solution, however, is so simple that even a small child can understand it. We have to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases. There were a few youths in the USA that refused to go to school because of the school shootings. And then someone I knew said, what if children did that but for the climate? Children like me are giving up their education to protest. Adults keep saying, we owe it to the young people to give them hope. But I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. Of course, by panic, I don't mean literally panic, but that we, and that especially they, step out of their comfort zone. Saying everything will be all right while continue doing nothing at all is just not hopeful to us. Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then, and only then, hope will come. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you're stealing their future in front of their very eyes. And we are striking because we have done our homework and they have not. And if you think that we should be in school instead, then we suggest that you take our place in the streets, starting from your work. Or better yet, join us so we can speed up the process. You need to listen to us, we who cannot vote. You need to vote for us.
You also need to lead by example. We may not like it, but in today's social climate, you need to live as you speak, live as you
practice as you preach. Practice as you preach. And since our leaders are behaving like children, we will have to take the responsibility they should have taken long ago.
What's your message to world leaders today?
You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. It has a lot of impact when you speak like truth to power, when you don't bother to be polite. Everything counts. What you do counts. Pretty cool, right?
So I hope that came through okay. But what I think with this compilation, we actually try to showcase a few things around Greta. She is obviously controversial in a sense. A lot of people love her, but also a lot of people are very much against the way she puts out this message. And I think we can come back to the why of that also when we go further in our dialogue about how kids and adults could actually collaborate together.
What's your personal response, Rita? Just out of interest, how does Greta and her message, how does that make you feel?
Well, I've been following her really for over a year, from when she started with the climate march and the first time that she actually gained some media traction. I was just completely in love with, a child taking, using her voice so powerfully, and very glad that actually this apparently had an effect. Because a lot of adults have been working in the field of sustainability or trying to get attention for climate change. But the way Greta has done this over the past year obviously has been really amazing. And perhaps also even the negative, I think one of the things that she shows in the video, very collected, she says, it's actually good to not, to speak power to the truth and to not be overly concerned with being politically correct. So I think I chose one of, a lot of my favorite clips for her to also show the diversity of her as a child. She's open, she's vulnerable, but she's also powerful, but she's also very calm and collected and funny. And I think for her age already, it's amazing how she actually, I think, quite consciously chooses who she talks about. Of course, for instance, the most recent talk of her in the UN, which was very emotional, scared a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't even know her history. And when I said to those people that are talking about it, saying, but she's been working on this for over a year, talking to different government institutions, asking for change, and nothing happens. You would be frustrated as well if you would be working on this at this scale with this intensity for over a year. On the other hand, also not a lot of people know about her background. That's why I thought it was also important to, in the beginning, to show that she is diagnosed as having Asperger. So is actually, it is a superpower. But when I told that also to people, they were actually also, oh, right, yeah. So she is kind of direct in her messaging, yeah. And which is, I think, also very useful with regard to this topic. So for us, that was a very important thing moving forward to setting this session up and having this discussion.
So Rita, you're working quite a lot with young people, and you're talking about topics such as climate change. And what is the response from the young people that you work with when they, when they see Greta and they hear her message? What's the kind of overall feeling that you get from the young people?
Well, I wouldn't want to make like bold statements on that, because if anything, working with groups of kids, it's just still very anecdotal, right? So one of the things, for instance, that we did with help of Camille is and the community here in Utrecht is devise a questionnaire, for instance, to actually ask exactly this question. So maybe.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I personally did a few interviews with kids, and for me it was very, very interesting, because one of the questions was exactly that. Do you know who is Greta, what she represents? And actually quite a lot of kids know her. Few of them joined a strike already, but also there was a little bit, I think 1/3 of the few questionnaires that we did that told, I don't know who is Greta. So that brings a little bit of insights, like why this kid doesn't know, or what it's missing in this link, because Greta is a kid of 15 years old and is in the streets, and there's a whole movement together with her, with kids, or within the summits, or with the politicians, with her speech. So it was quite interesting to have these 2 points of views also to discuss further for our other activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and perhaps, Harry, it's good to note that we're not just here with Camilla, me, and Judith, but there's more people in the room. And one actually, Lenka, does communications. And we just before the session, we talked about how this seems for the people working in the field like it's, you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. But still, a lot of people are not reached with this message, which basically, I think, builds on the argument of that it is important to keep organizing things offline, very locally, like we tried to do last weekend, and we want to do moving forward.
Can you tell us a little bit about the event you organized last weekend, and just sort of how was that structured and who showed up?
Yeah. Because, for us, thinking about this collaboration between adults and children is in that sense new, that we are, for now, we're always focused a little bit more about structuring programs for kids. So workshop for kids, and of course, adults like teachers and parents had a role to play, but it was more on the sideline. So for this weekend, we really tried to put them together around the table and to have like an equal say in the debate. So it went well. And it could have been better, but perhaps it's good to move to our next video to show a little bit of an impression of how the event went. Is that okay?
That would be great. Yeah.
Oh, where is it? Can we stop share? Right. I think we had the video ready, but oh, there it is. There it is. And the other one, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
was your experience last Saturday to work with just grown-ups?
I liked it very much, but sometimes I didn't know what to say and I got a bit shy because I didn't know them.
Do you think it's important that we invest in meetings with grown-ups and kids?
Yeah, because I think that people talk with each other and then more and more people will know and then take action with each other. We can think about a place where we meet each month and talk with each other. I think it's important that we do stuff together because for the kids it has to be fun and not just talk, talk, talk. The app because the gaming part and that you can challenge your parents and find more info about climate. In the app you can play all sorts of games where you can challenge your parents. For example, how much water do you use, or put the heater off, or the lights, or where your clothes come from. I think it will be fun if we all invite kids and then work out one of the plans. For example, the Green Christmas. Toys you don't use, you bring to one place, and then other kids can come there and swap things or buy. Follow me on Instagram at the Super Station.
Great, thank you for sharing that video.
You're welcome.
So why, I mean, the big question then in my mind is why do you feel personally, and maybe you've touched on it slightly already, but why is it so important? Why do we need adults and young people working together?
Sorry, we have one of our previous sessions running on the background. So your question was why we feel it is important. Well, again, going back to the video of Greta that we showed, I actually also selected the clips where she specifically talked about the roles of kids and adults. And what you've been seeing in the media as well is like this conclusion, oh, she's pitting generations against each other. Like it's us, the kids, it's us, the current generations against the future generations. And she uses language like adults are acting childish and not taking their responsibilities. So she's working with these meanings around the term kid and the term adult. And I think if you talk to people, again, we also did this on Saturday, what you see is that's not what we want. We don't want a war between adults and kids, and we don't want we think there's a more constructive way to go about it. And I think that is an important thing to learn more about how collaboration could actually work. So that is one big reason.
What do you think Greta would say if she was in the room and you said to her, you know, I think that your message is your message is quite divisive. It's creating an us and them dynamic. How do you think she might respond?
I actually think she would respond, and this obviously is just a guess. But what I see her doing, like for instance, when she says our house is on fire, and I actually put the clip behind just after that, where she says, well, our house is on fire. I want you to panic, but she actually says, I don't want you to really panic. What I want is you to get behind the science and not talk about, oh, children are the hope. Acts. At a certain point also, which was also shown in the clip, she says, you know, you want me to go back to school, but I will continue striking and actually invite you to also strike from your work. So perhaps you can accelerate this movement. So she has a lot of also invites in inviting adults to the movement. And I think her biggest critique is also very much in a setting where she is talking to world leaders and she is talking to politicians. And that sharpness is I think through the media extrapolated to mean that it's against every adult. But I think she would say that that is not the case. And actually, when you look at the climate strikes, there are a lot of grown-up peoples and adults that actually participate in the movement as well. Do you have something to add to that, or?
Well, I think I would like to add we actually learned from the workshop. I would like to explain a little bit how we planned that and how it went. Because in the beginning, we were like with this idea to put kids together with adults and collaborate, do this brainstorm around this question, how we actually can collaborate together locally in pro of a global action. So put the Greta idea, like the house is on fire, in local actions. And our first challenge was actually how to get kids here. We didn't have a lot of kids attendance. Well, we had one, the one that you saw in the video, Katie, and we had to change a little bit the structure of the workshop. And that brings us a lot of insights in terms of how important it is to not talk about what we can do or what schools can do to teach kids, to work with kids, but actually do together, build something together. And this it's the most important thing that we learn. And we need to learn how to talk the same language as the kids. And remember, when we were kids, what we like to do, what kids from 9 to 15 years old like to do today. They like to play, they like to perhaps use social media. And so our discussion was also brings these insights, and was also very important in a personal level, because when we put this discussion together with the speech of Greta and such a impactful topic that our house is on fire, it takes everybody for a little bit more emotional level, a more personal level. We don't want that our house would be on fire. So what can we do? And yeah, perhaps we can share a little bit of the outcomes that the proposals the groups brought. And I would like to invite Patricia. She's here and she was presented during the workshop Saturday to explain this idea of the app. It was one, and also Kate during this video that you just watched, she really liked, especially because bring this idea, it's a game, we can make fun, we can challenge each other. So please, thank you.
Thank you. Hi. So yeah, the initial idea of the app was actually, we started thinking, okay, so how do we make this happen? We have to bring things that are in the reach of kids. So what happens in their daily life.
Sorry, can I just ask you for a moment? So what was the app trying to achieve when you set out to build an app? What problem were you trying to solve?
Yeah, so the initial idea of the workshop was the actual idea at the moment was to how we can bridge the gap between kids and adults. So how can we make them learn together and teach each other, not only adults teaching kids, but kids teaching adults, in this case, mostly their parents. So that's why I was thinking that, okay, so we need to do these things with things that we do at home. So we started thinking about topics like food, water, clothes, energy, toys, everything, waste, like everything that kids see that they can actually have an impact with their daily life. And then, okay, so we have these themes, and how can we make it fun? Because, we're dealing with kids. So we started thinking about making a game out of it. And then because of all the influence of social media, kids are more and more connected every day. We thought about making an app in which we could have all these different themes and have not only the kids using it, but also the parents. And then the kids can share, like they choose the theme that they want to play in that day. like water. So then first they would get a video explaining why water is related, is important, why it's related to sustainability. And then from this video, the kids can send this video to the parents and see when they watch it. And from then they have like questionnaires or quizzes or different types of game that they can play, and they can play together with the parents. And then they have, for example, challenges that they can say like, this week we're gonna save water, and then the kids can check, And
that's great. And has the app been built already, or is it still in the planning?
Oh, no. No, I just had the idea.
Oh, it's just an idea at this stage. Have you pitched this idea to young people and to parents to get some feedback?
Well, we pitched to Kate on the workshop, and she really liked it. But then the second idea of the app is that the more kids join, so like in schools and in the neighborhood, in the community in general, we can actually use the app to trade and make events where everybody can come together. And also, what's happening?
Sounds like you've got a party going on over there.
Okay, now we're back.
Okay.
So then we could have these events, and then kids could play the games live there, but also bring toys that they can swap clothes. So it can be more of a community that they can get together every now and then.
Okay, so it sounds like a multi-purpose app.
Yes.
That's sort of a community hub, a game, a place for games, and a place for learning and sharing ideas.
Yeah, what we actually also showed during the workshop was this example of the Global Citizens platform and app as well, which is of course is targeted to adults. But what they do really there is challenge yourself. You can gain points. I don't know if you're familiar with the Global Citizens platform, but you can gain points. And for instance, if you have a lot of points, you can add it to, you can submit it and participate in raffles and win concert tickets, for instance. And so in last month, there was this huge Global Citizens concert at Central Park, New York, where thousands and thousands of people joined, all being global citizens. So that's the big aspiration, but I think it does show the point that there needs to be some kind of facilitation. So for me, it would be a challenge to see how we can make this global citizens idea into a kids format.
Great. And what would be your next steps then, or what's your next project or workshop look like? What are you planning to do?
Yeah. So I think we are going to try several things. I think Camilla can later explain what we could do, for instance, within Utrecht, because the last Saturday workshop was really like a local initiative started around still a very young group of local initiative takers. So we do want to collaborate with the people that we've met in this process and move forward from that. From a foundation's perspective, we are really going to look at all the activities that we have set up so far to see how we can relate adults and kids more. So not only adults being in their teacher or mentor role, telling kids or showing kids what to do, but to have them more as equals around the table. So how we can integrate those more in the activities that we already have. And I think one of the still starting initiatives that we have is called the Circular Stars Club, because as a foundation, our tagline is empowering kids to be circular stars. So what we try to achieve is actually have these kids groups in different neighborhoods. It could be organized around the school, but it could be also organized around the neighborhood center. It could be organized around a company where employees with their kids have a Circular Stars Club. And from this Circular Stars Club, then create not so much kids related programming, but family related programming.
Yeah, perhaps I can add these questions with one of the other outputs from the workshop. We had really good ideas, and we just highlight here the ones that we got the approval of the kid, of Kate. And she really liked another simple idea, but also using games, kind of a competition, and also using social media to be able to spread, would be the Green Christmas or any other name related to the event of Christmas to be more sustainable. So the whole idea would be to create a competition between kids and different groups that they need to come up with ideas how to make Christmas more sustainable. And that would be very, very nice here in Utrecht, especially because it's a global city goals. So they are very much aware about sustainable development goals. You can see these are sometimes there are exposition in the train stations about this. So it's a topic that it's here, and we could perhaps work with one school or a community center or a sports school. But the whole idea would be to create this competition between groups of kids. And of course, once it's involved the Christmas, would be and social media, the parents would be related as well. We would like to make this advertisement, this to spread this awareness also to reach the parents, to help and to support this kind of initiative. And here in the Halloween, there was an advertisement on social media as well, saying that parents don't buy costumes because they are most of them are made of out of plastic, and the kids use for 3 hours or so, and they throw it away. So why don't continue this perhaps for Christmas that it's coming, but this whole idea can be looking for further events and national holidays, things like that.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. I would like to add something to that as well, because I think the approach, one important thing about the approach, what we're doing now as a pilot, is to really work from a networks perspective and from a systems perspective. So it's not so much, we in Amsterdam figure something out. Of course, that could be a part, that we figure a very big event out and try to work that. But it's finding these local people like Camilla living in Utrecht, her friends, her acquaintances, her network living in Utrecht, being familiar about what the city does. Like she proudly says that Utrecht is very keen on achieving and working on some of the sustainable development goals, but so is Amsterdam and so is Rotterdam. So if we find local people that can actually be these ambassadors and create a project group locally to then organize these community events on the more local and city level, I think that can really be powerful, because you can learn from the format more on the national and even global scale, but it needs that local attention to have the connections with the local municipality, to have the connections. Like for instance, now we are hosted by Seeds to Meets, which is a co-working place in Utrecht. And they have been so gracious to offer us the space for free. But it's because you have these local connections that you can also organize these deals. So I think that was an important thing that I wanted to mention in terms of approach and moving forward.
Great. So the people watching this may be thinking, this all sounds really good. Getting young people active and getting them working alongside their parents and alongside adults to arrive at solutions is fantastic. But some people might be wondering, like issues like climate change, sustainability, the circular economy, these are quite complex issues that a lot of adults struggle to understand. And some people might be thinking, given that's the case, how do we expect young people to also grapple with them? Or maybe actually it's the adults that are the people that struggle the most with it. How do you go about managing that in your work?
Yeah, it's a super valid point, and I think it is good to mention, because that's actually, you know, if I talk with friends of mine about these ideas of people that I know, it's definitely one of the first things that they mention. You know, how can we work together on a topic that is so complex that most people don't even understand, most adults don't even understand themselves? Why should we then involve kids in that process? But I think, to me at least, and to us, it's not about, even as an adult, about putting yourself to the challenge of being like having a PhD on climate change to have the right, or to earn the right to talk about it. You know, also together with Agostina, a fellow board member of mine, we discussed this, and it's more about teaching empathy and teaching awareness of the topic. Because if we focus on that, you will help develop citizens that perhaps might not all know all the facts that Greta can state herself in most of the speeches that she gives, but they are willing to support science, or they are willing to vote for the parties that do put climate change on the agenda. So this just overall awareness of the problem. So that people are supportive of the agenda, and also in their small way willing to take action, I think is more the target of or the goal of the activities that we want to have. And I think it's really also good and vulnerable to say, I don't know, I don't understand everything. I will raise my hand as the first one in the crowd, saying I don't have all the facts about climate change or even circular economy, even if I work in the field. But I'm willing to enter this messy arena of trying to figure out how we can work within our own sphere of power and influence, how we can do our bit. And I think that is actually something that Greta says very well as well. You know, when she is asked about what her motivation is to do this, she just wants to look herself in the mirror and be able to say, I did what I could. And I think, you know, if we can stimulate people more to ask the question what they can do, instead of feeling paralyzed by, oh, this topic is too complicated, I think that already would be a good thing.
I would like to add something as well, because during the questionnaires that we sent out, one thing that grabbed my attention was most of the adults that care about sustainability or care or want to do something, we asked, did you have any experience during your childhood that you think you influenced you to care about sustainability today? And actually, most of the questions were related to experience, like, oh, well, during my childhood, I had a lot of contact with in the nature, or my parents recycled the garbage since I was a kid, so I always care about it because it's my natural instinct. And I come back into the kid side. During our workshop, Kate also presented some of her own ideas. And the first thing that she mentioned was like, adults, please take us outside. We like to go to the nature. We like to see the parks. We understand better if we experience that. So that is a good point as well.
I think that's a powerful message for schools in general as well, and about the importance of taking the learning outside as much as possible.
Yeah, and it's also about tackling all the challenges, because you know, the argument of the topic is too difficult is not the only bottleneck that we face. It's also, you know, youth is, they're hypocritical because they go on strike, but if you ask them to perhaps eat a little bit less meat or anything else that actually touches them personally, they're a little bit more resistant. Or for instance, people saying, you know, any initiative with kids is just using kids for a political agenda. So there's lots of things and, you know, counter arguments that we might face and tackle. And hopefully we can do it through experimentation and showcasing hopefully what we aim for positive results can be. So before we, I also want to maybe perhaps invite Judith, because I'm sure she has an opinion on this as well, and she's nodding, so.
I do have an opinion on this. I was waiting to say something. Yeah, because what I find important when it comes to this topic, that was his question, that it could be a bit too big. The concept can be too big. It can relate to fear or whatever, and it can sort of, well, paralyze you in a sense. So what we try to do, and we cooperated on that as well, is to get the topics that really relate to kids. So a sneaker challenge, for example, where they design their own sneakers, that's the start. They can all relate to that, youngsters. But when you come to the part of, okay, so what are all the parts of this sneaker? And how do you unpuzzle it? And what are all the materials? And in the end, they had to do a presentation on their new sneaker. And part of the whole concept was to think about new materials. And they all chose materials into their prototype that were either circular, or they had soles that were made of bottles. They used old, what was it again? What do you call that? Spijkerstof.
Denim.
Denim, right,
Jeans.
that one. Old jeans. They used old, I never wear jeans, sorry. So they used old jeans, and they had an idea of what happens with jeans, so how it's polluting the world. So you're bringing it down to the very, very narrow subject. But in that case, you're also asking them the question, how many sneakers do you have? So how much is your impact on this world? Mm-hmm. So it's just making the concept as small as possible. I think it's very relevant. Yeah, relating it to youngsters.
And is this sneaker challenge, is this a project that you've already run with young people?
Yes, we have last summer. Yeah, it was a great success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we can share links afterwards on the platform as well to show some videos and some content about that week. But it was absolutely amazing, because it brought together a lot of things. It brought together like the concept of circularity. That was actually our role in the collaboration and the programming. But Judith brought a lot of like the new tech, so like 3D printing, working with microbits, working with textiles, design, digital skills. So we all put that in the week. And so we gave the kids the challenge, the sustainable sneaker, the circular sneaker, but we immediately also gave them like this new type of tooling that is more like next economy. So it was absolutely a very nice project to do. Yeah.
And will you be running any more challenges, any more projects on the horizon similar?
Yeah, we have, I think we just talked in the train to Utrecht that there are perhaps 2 sneaker challenges coming up next year. And as a foundation, of course, we will also be programming our 7-day circular, which is also this project week, and which is a whole week where all the first year students of a high school that we have here in the Netherlands participate in. And it starts with principles of circularity, but it also tackles design thinking. It tackles social entrepreneurship. We bring the kids in touch with businesses. We invite entrepreneurs that are working on circular concepts to school, and they themselves throughout the week work on challenges that are also related to topics that they know. So last time, for instance, we chose food and packaging because everybody has that in their own household. We chose fashion and electronics, and we chose living and mobility. So it's also always important to us to make it relevant for the children. So that's on the horizon. That's actually happening this February. So after this, that will be the main focus for us to set that up again.
Brilliant. So it looks like we're coming to the end of our time. It would be good perhaps to end with, well, what advice could you give to anybody out there who's watching who wants to run similar projects, either they're teachers in schools or they're just passionate people in the community, their parents, whatever it may be, but they want to engage with these challenges that we're facing. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, there was earlier in this year a talk that I did in Brussels for the circular stakeholders circular shareholders stakeholders group, which was an interesting group from all industries, and they asked me to do the closing with the 5 recommendations around the circular economy and how to move forward. And so for me, that's still valid everywhere. The first thing is to be curious and to step outside of your bubble. This is like, again, a systems thing. This is trying to really connect different dots. So if you're, for instance, like a student, like I think Camilla actually did that really well, because she reached out to me saying, you know, I'm interested in what you are doing. Can you tell me more about it? So we should be reaching out to people that we may perhaps don't know yet, but have the courage to step to them, you know, and ask them questions on how to collaborate. And I think it's also very good, so be curious, be aware, so also be very reflective and look at yourself. We're too much in this discussion talking about others, but we need to learn about what is actually in our sphere of influence. Then the third is be generous. I think all these people that both Saturday and also today came here and spent time and energy to work with us. That's just, you know, that's movement powered by generosity. Then the fourth is be playful, because we are, especially as adults, overthinking everything. Everything needs to be planned and it needs to be projected, and we have to have different scenarios. You just have to go play in the mud, fall down, get up, and then the last thing, the fifth, is of course be a star, us being the Stars of Circular Foundation, but meaning that you can be a beacon for others and you can search out your own beacons. Perhaps you will be contacting 50 people, but 10 will resonate with your idea. Stick to that constellation of 10 and work with them to navigate you through the process to achieve your circular ambition. So that for me are the five topics. But
some great advice there. Thanks, Rita. Anything to add, Camilla?
Well, I would add just to, once we are talking about so difficult topics like broad, and perhaps people are a bit even scared about what means sustainability or climate change. It's too big for me. I don't have the responsibility with that. But yeah, you do have responsibility to take ownership and try to understand in small in your daily life. What can you do to make the difference? And network definitely is the best way to do anything. I'm here today because of that. And when you think about kids and all adults, we rationalize a lot. Maybe we can start to think a little bit simple and what kids would do if they get this challenge. So let's start small. I think that's it.
Well, I'd like to thank you both very much, and Judith and everyone else there, for a wonderful session and for all of the great work that you're doing. And I wish you best of luck in all your future projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Bye.
Thank you for everybody.
Great. And for everybody watching online, be sure to check out the rest of our sessions on the DIF. And we hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you.